Hello and welcome everyone to episode number 85 at the Indie Football Podcast. And it's been quite a journey for us and quite a journey for even the people who are joining us, because now we are truly, I think, 25% of the episodes that we have done are people joining us from overseas. And today the case remains, of course. Hello, Pranay, for taking out thanks, Pranay, for taking out the time. I know it's pretty late out there, and the first question to you might be, how many times have you done something related to football at midnight at the place that you're living right now?
At the place that I'm living. Well, I mean, I play FIFA or FC 24. That's my
Right.
night. That's my going to bed routine. Is before going to bed, I play career mode, and then
Oh,
I
that's the
listen to
dream.
listen to a couple of podcasts, football podcasts. Just they have wo chalta rehta hai na unka. I think there's one get the overlap. I think it's called. I love
Yeah, I've
that.
heard.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
So I listen to that, play FC 25, and that usually goes beyond.
There's another one called Indie Football Podcast that make
Yeah,
extremely great content on football. So, yeah.
Yeah, amazing plug. Amazing plug.
yeah.
But Anukash
Absolutely.
sir, of course, we have had many. I think we have had many Manchester United fans, but not too many who are content creators and joining us from the USA, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Even I was, I had a tongue-in-cheek remark before this, before you joined in, Pranay, that I love doing the indie football podcast, but waking up at 8 a.m. for a Manchester United fan is where I draw the line. But yeah, absolutely. These things are fun and part of the podcast, and we've had some really good United fans with us, even on our community groups. But yeah, United has been doing some really good business. I think it's a very ideal time to do the podcast. It's kind of good that we didn't do it a couple of weeks earlier, because now the Lenny Euros of the world and the Gandhis of the world are have either joined in or are close to joining. What do you think of United's transfer business so far? I know this is a question which is relatively, coming from a fanboy more than someone who is in the podcast. But United have done some great business. Lenny Euro, of course, has come in. Manuel Ugarte, Delight, Braithwaite, all of them have been, quoted. How do you see it happening? Do you see the Ineos era as something different altogether? What is your take on it?
So I think we all collectively, as a United fan base, have severe PTSD from the last 10 years. We're traumatized.
That's right.
Whenever something good happens, I don't
Yeah.
think my first reaction is like, "This is amazing." It's usually like, "Why is it so good?" Like,
Must be
what can
slow.
go wrong? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What can go wrong? What more can go wrong? I feel like it's too much positivity, because that's how I that's how I felt. So when Ineos came in, and it was, you know, positive, anything could be better than what it was for the last 10 years. Uh,
Absolutely.
when they came in, it's like, okay, let's see what they're going to do. Well, my brain started thinking of things that could
Yeah.
go wrong. And then they did they made two transfers back to back. That was a crazy couple of days. They got in, yeah, first of all, Xerxes they got in, which was
Yeah, yeah, of
great,
course.
great in itself, because that, I
Mm.
mean, we haven't had a fit striker since I don't even we love shopping in the old striker department. So I don't
Yeah.
even know when we had a fit striker. But then when they got Euro, and that too, going head to head against Madrid, yes, we paid more money. That's why we got it. That was, people say that. But the fact that we got a young up and coming talent like Lenny Oro, it was positivity for like 3 days, and then things kind of like died down again. And now again, I'm in that stage. It's like they're not going to sign anyone. This is gone. The season's gone. Everything's ruined. Shut shop. Let's start again next summer.
Yeah,
I
but
I think
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you here,
yeah,
भाई. I'm just getting that vibe कि यूनाइटेड फैंस जो है काफी वो जो इंडियन मॉम्स वाली मेंटालिटी होती है ना, कि मेरे बेटे के साथ कुछ बुरा ही होगा बाहर जाएगा तो इट्स दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ साइकोलॉजी हियर एट प्रेजेंट कि बाहर गया तो पक्का किडनैप होकर आएगा.
what I was going to ask Pranay over here is, Of course, we will speak more about United in detail, but let's go a few years back. And what draws you to Manchester United? Because many people have different reasons. They mention Ronaldo, they mention Ferguson, they mention even what Beckham did there for a while. But it's just
Mhm.
nice to see what different people. And of course, yesterday
Hmm.
also we had a YouTube live where Anukar sir hosts Liverpool fans from across fan clubs in India, and one of them was
Oh,
just
that's cool.
mentioning, yeah, and one of them was mentioning how, what are the driving forces for him to become a Liverpool fan. So I'd just love to know more about your side, as in why Manchester United.
Yeah. Well, I would love to give a very like deep and
Yeah.
spiritual answer, but it really isn't that deep for me. At least. See, a couple of things happened was like, first of all, they started showing, at least you know, uh, when I realized like uh, football was also being shown on TV, and
Yeah,
that too English football. That was like 2004, because
yeah,
my grandpa loved Arsenal. He loved Vieira.
Oh,
He loved Henry. So he would always talk about them. And then my dad also liked Arsenal at that point. So then I started watching. I'm like, okay, who are these players? And right around like towards the end of 2005, I used to play the demo version of FIFA
yeah,
2006. And
yes.
I think it
yeah.
had only two or three teams. It had AC Milan, it had Arsenal, I think, but
And United also, I think.
it had United, yeah.
Yeah, I remember playing it. Yeah.
It it was a pretty I mean I enjoyed it at that point, but it was a pretty limited game. But I remember playing with Rooney and Ronaldo, these two players. Those names stuck. So when
Hmm.
I like friends sab log, and
Yeah,
so another thing happened during that time is all of my friends सब लोग ने एक एक टीम ले लिया था कि अच्छा मैं लिवरपूल सपोर्ट करूँ,
Acha.
मैं ये सपोर्ट करूँ, मैं वो सपोर्ट. I was like, okay, I need to. I don't know if can swear here, but I was like, I need to.
Yeah, yeah. Completely good. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I need to find a team. And then naturally, I was playing with Manu. I was like, okay, Man United, who's this team? Who are these players? And then I started watching them, and instantly Rooney and Ronaldo stuck out. And I'm like,
yeah,
this is it. The attacking football that they play, just domination. And also like back then there like no one's surfing the web. Like you're 10 years old, 11 years old, you're not surfing the web in 2006. So all the news that I got was on the back pages of the newspaper. So I didn't even know like United is the history of United, or what United meant in in the grander scheme of things. It was
yeah,
just how they play in this moment. There are these two or three exciting players, so that just kind of kickstarted everything.
yeah.
Interesting.
And you mentioned your grandfather and your father being Arsenal fans, and even I see a lot of documentaries around sports and how the older generations pass down their fandom. And I would just probably, with your story, I feel your father and grandfather were not enforcing Arsenal fans, otherwise even you would have been a gunner today. So that's what I was thinking.
I till this day love Andre. I
Yeah.
love him, but I kind of went the other way. I was like,
So you grew up in the USA only, or you had your initial years in India?
no. So I'm born and raised in India.
Okay.
I was
Oh,
there till I
okay.
was 18, and I moved
Okay.
here basically for my undergrad. So I'm pretty much, yeah,
Okay.
from India.
Yeah. Understood.
Interesting.
So how did growing up in India shape your, passion for football? Because you mentioned 2004, 5, 6, but
Yeah.
of course cricket was the dominant sport at that time, even today. So how do you think the passion for football was for you in India, and how do you think it differs from the US perspective of how people have passion for football over there, soccer? And are there any differences that you have seen? I'm
Yeah.
not speaking about Indian football. I'm speaking
Yeah.
about how
Yeah.
people view European and other types of football. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think football more than cricket, at least from where I grew up. Every person has a different upbringing,
Upbringing.
different
Yeah.
circumstances, and different stories. At least where I grew up in Pune,
Okay.
and
Oh, nice.
I yeah, and at least everyone around me, all my friends, same age group, football was the sport that everybody was playing actively. गली
Right.
क्रिकेट तो होता था, वो तो खेल
हाँ,
लेते थे. स्कूल में स्पोर्ट्स ये हुआ, पीटी पीरियड हुआ कि everybody is playing, everybody is on the field, you get
Right.
split up into teams,
हाँ,
and then forget 11v11, 12, no one cares. It's like 15v15, it might be 30v30. Everybody's playing football.
yeah,
Everybody was talking about football at that point, and at that age. So you're just in that, in that zone. Also, that's, as I said, that's right around the time uh, when these cafes started opening up.
yeah,
Like, for example, one of the things, Man United Cafe opened up. So, like, there was a lot of investment of Premier. I think Premier League also realized that shit, we have a fan, we have a ready fan base in India. So there was a lot of investment coming. So all the entire conversation was around football, and that's the sport that was being played. Um, there was very little of actual professional structure
yeah,
for a kid to
hmm,
take it to the
makes
next
sense.
step, because
Right.
everybody was a fan, and I had friends who were clearly a step above everybody else, like in terms of
Hmm,
their skills and
right.
their talent, general talent. uh, they're all engineers now.
yeah,
Hmm,
Where did we go wrong, right? So it,
yeah.
it was kind of that professional structure wasn't there, and comparing that to the US. Obviously, I haven't been a kid here, but what I've noticed here is there's obviously kids are fans, uh,
yeah,
but I feel like a lot of the kids are fans of Madrids and the Barças and the Man Uniteds and the Liverpools because their parents kind of feel obligated to either show them, you're playing
Yeah.
soccer, here's a team that you should probably watch, here's a
Hmm,
player that you should probably play like, uh,
right.
or it is the parents that are the fans and that are showing their kids that
Hmm,
this is my opinion now, might be wrong, but I feel like that organicness isn't there here that was in India. But there's that professional structure where you can have a kid. In fact, in my family itself, my one of my nephews, so he signed for a club who's associated with BVB, which is
okay,
insane. It blows
yeah,
my mind.
yeah,
And but that's just because there are these clear stepping stones that'll get you, or if you're good enough, that'll get you all the way to the top, which I
yeah,
feel like didn't exist at least back then in India.
yeah, absolutely,
absolutely. Even I was thinking that now that you mentioned it, we had a guest from the US who is a soccer coach, and he had mentioned to us about how the structure in the US is so different in terms of pay
Mm.
and in terms of how they are able to manage kids and how they go to the next level. So of course it's very different as compared to India, where there's a lot of problems at the bureaucratic level and all. But of course, I hope we can mitigate them in the near future. But one interesting incident that when you shared that there was a time when 15 people used to go against 15. I remember back in school, like it must be more than a decade back now. I think it was six or seven, somewhere around that. And it was like we had 8 sections. So 4 sections used to have the PT period at a certain time. Yeah.
Right.
So उसमें I remember चारों sections के around 50 boys and 50 girls. They all
yeah,
went to the basketball court. And it was a boys versus girls match, and it was chaotic. It was like as soon as you had the ball, it was like हेरा फेरी का सीन चल रहा हो, सब पीछे भाग रहे हैं बिल्कुल ही ना
Uh-huh.
एकदम ही मतलब क्रेजी एकदम मतलब you remember that scene at the end of Garam Masala, if you have seen it, जब अक्षय कुमार भाग रहा है बहुत सारी लड़कियां उसके पीछे भाग रही है. It
uh,
was like that. It was like that in real life. So yeah, all I could think of was that. But yeah, anyway,
you
though,
know,
yeah, if you want to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was so of course Pranay just mentioned about his nephew, and even I have a nephew living in Atlanta, Georgia, right next to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, actually. And they're also going to watch a preseason game of Chelsea, which is happening this weekend, I think, over
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to ask that.
That's bad education for him, but
Yeah, of course, we have,
teaching him about the struggles, like starting from the bottom. And yeah, that
yeah.
but have you been to any preseason Premier League
yeah.
games over there, or like any soccer matches? And how's the experience of that, going into the stadium? And the World Cup is going to happen there in a couple of years. So
Yes.
the Copa America happened there recently. So tell us more about the soccer stadium viewing experience, and if you have had any.
Yeah, so in fact, last summer I went to watch a preseason game. I think it was Sevilla versus Crystal Palace. They had come. I live in Detroit, so
Oh,
they'd come to Detroit, and they played. This was the mind fuck is that they were playing in a baseball stadium. Now, baseball stadium has a very like square stadium hota hai. Usko
Yeah,
yeah.
उन्होंने football stadium में convert किया था. And
yeah,
it
Acha.
was all like, literally fitting a rectangle peg in a squarish, triangularish hole. Um, but people turn up. That's one thing about the US which baffles me. Everyday life, I'm walking around, I'm talking to people. They're like, "Soccer, oh my, soccer is that where people flop around?" Like that's the perception of football is, oh, those it's World Cup Brazil and people flopping around on the ground. कि injury नहीं हुआ and then वो लेट गए जमीन पर. But you go to any of these preseason, like I went to the preseason game, there are these soccer fans, football fans in nooks and crannies and little, they're hidden, छुपे रहते हैं सब लोग आते हैं बाहर.
yeah.
Same with MLS. You see any MLS game, it's always packed, and it baffles my mind. कहाँ पे है ये लोग? Um, so that was the most recent preseason experience that I had. Was watching Crystal Palace. Eze just fucking dominated that game. It was
Oh man,
insane. Eze,
Uh,
great,
I love him.
great
Love
number
it.
10. I think United are also in for him, right?
Nay.
I have read a few rumors here, flying around, but yeah, that might
Really?
not be the thing.
Could I mean
Yeah,
I
but I
would
think
love.
with
Yeah.
Xerxes coming in, that might be something which is more far-fetched now.
Yeah. And plus we have Bruno. Right? Like it's hard to that man's a machine. He's always available.
Absolutely.
But Eze, I remember I watching him live. It was just like every time he touched the ball, he would just make something happen. But I did watch another preseason game in 2018
Okay.
or 18 or 19.
Mhm.
United played Liverpool in
Oh.
in Ann Arbor,
Was
Michigan.
it the three? Was it the 3-2 win that United won at the end? Was it the
No,
3-2
I
win?
wish it was. I wish it was. It was a
Acha,
four. We lost, I think, 4-0. Shaqiri hit a bicycle.
acha. I remember
Bro,
the
I
game.
was watching. I went to watch it with my dad. My dad's always been my football
Yeah,
watching buddy throughout
uh,
throughout.
wow,
Um,
yeah.
what a guy.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, Papa, चलो जाते हैं. Man United आ रही है, Manchester United. है ना अच्छा मतलब शर्ट खरीदेंगे, देखने जाएंगे अच्छे
Yeah,
से. We went to the stadium, 100,000 capacity filled.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
year before Madrid played United States, that is the most watched football game in, I think, in the US or in um I think in the US. 100,000, 118,000, and there's an image
oh,
of
damn.
that online you can find out. Yeah, but that's what fans turn up, and
yeah.
it's always packed. It's
Right.
yeah, a lot of fun.
But do you remember that overhead kick by Shaqiri in that match?
Oh yeah, it's imprinted in there. Like Joe, I wasn't even angry. Like I should have been devastated, but I was
Yeah,
just like
I remember.
I was blown away seeing that live.
And Pranay bhai, what inspired you to start creating content? And you're definitely doing something right. You've got a massive following on Instagram. You
Thanks.
mentioned you mentioned music as an interest. So how does it even influence your content creation a bit, or like relax you during your busy period? So how is the entire content creation music thing? How did it
Yeah.
start, and how is it going, and where do you see it going in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah. Ooh. You sound like my parents. ये content creation तो अच्छा है, काम का क्या सोचा है? But yeah, it kind of came out of like nowhere. So I feel like my whole life I go through phases of things that I'm very interested in, and the things that I'm really interested in kind of stick with me. So football was that for me. Before that was freaking Beyblades and Dragon
Oh,
Ball Z and
yeah,
Pokemon
of
and
course.
all of this
We
stuff.
have all been there.
Yeah, anime and like section of it always sticks with you. So football was that throughout, my early childhood into teenage and into like college years, and but also like music. Like I'm wearing Metallica. Like I
Yeah.
love metal music, and I play the guitar as well. So that kind of stuck with me. And then I came here. It was quite a big shift, especially at the age that I came, because it was like I'm starting from scratch in terms of cultural, the cultural know-how of a
Yeah.
place. Because in America, India, you know how to behave in India. यहाँ आकर you have to learn how to, like, I still remember I first week that I was in college, I was sitting down and I was with a bunch of Americans, and I had to figure out how does their sense of humor works. Like
Yeah.
what is, like small random things like that you never thought about. So that kind of happened. That kind of shook everything up, and then eventually music and football stayed with me, and then come to now, the content creation. My content creation has actually nothing to do with football or music. These are just two of my very big interests that I've, for some reason, I've never like introduced into my content. I started making stuff on Instagram because honestly I got bored after work. I used to come home and I would be like, I want to make something, and then I started recording. I was like, oh, there's some funny things that I've lived myself, being from India and living in the US. So I was like, I'm just going to make something, throw that out there, and people seem to like what I do. So again, it's not a very deep answer. It's just just
Yeah.
started doing it, and
It's
Yeah.
all right. It's not the beer biceps podcast, so we can go for
nah,
any more superficial stuff.
मौत के
But
हाँ, आपने मौत के बारे में कभी सोचा था?
एलियंस के बारे में नहीं बात करेंगे, और एरिया 54 है, एरिया 51 जो बोलते हैं उसके बारे में बात नहीं करेंगे. हाँ, प्रणय भाई से. But yeah, now that you mentioned a Metallica t-shirt, I think this is the right time for us to mention that these jerseys have been sponsored by Shop Football for this episode. Yeah, for the last episode also. So yeah, thank you Shop Football for this. For this gift, and for sponsoring us for this episode. Also, Pranay bhai, now that you mentioned, I found something very intriguing about your page. I have seen Preetham copying a lot of people, but you are the first guy who I have seen copying Preetham, and making such funny reels out of it. Tell us about that, because I think that was, I was like, भाई ये सही है, because ये बंदा Preetham को copy करता है, मतलब Preetham भी शर्मा जाएगा. So that's like guilt tripping Preetham into saying कि भाई खुद का content बना. So yeah, what's your take on that?
Yeah, Ari, so the thing with Instagram is the algorithm is very strange, and it's hard to like figure out what's going to work, what's not. Like 99% of the things that I think are going to work are not going to work. They always tag. So
Absolutely.
one thing that I've learned, I've only been doing this for a year, so I consider myself very new into this, and I'm trying to learn more than anything. I'm just trying to learn. At the end of the day, it's like people's psychology, like what grabs someone's attention, what keeps someone's attention. Doing that, I've tried to create a lot of different series, things that I naturally find funny, naturally like creating. I was like, acha ye skit dekhte hain, acha wo ye skit, people like this skit, why do people like this skit? It reminds them of their childhood, reminds them of a certain experience. So, like you keep doing that until you see there's kind of like a negative response, not negative in the sense of a negative response by people. It's just the algorithm, a video doesn't do well or something. And then kind of look at the data, and then you're like, okay, Maybe let's try
Mm.
something else. So I've just literally for the last year just trying to reinvent things that I can do. And one thing that I hate doing is like copying others.
Yeah.
Like I've had instances where
Yeah.
I've made something, one of my other peers have made something, and someone else just picks it up and does the exact same thing, and they're a
Yeah.
bigger
Mm.
channel, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah. It's a bit of a pet peeve, you know? Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, copy नहीं करना है, खुद का कुछ करेंगे. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we'll keep doing it. So that kind of came out of just one thing. I was like, we'll see. Songs, what if the songs, each song, I still haven't like honed into what that is, but I was like, it started with the a video that I made with one of Shan's songs, in which he doesn't just uska start hota hi nahi hai. Like I was listening to the song for a minute, there's just music. He sings in the beginning, and there's like none of his singing in the middle. I'm like, how funny would it be if Shan is like waiting for his turn, he's trying to sing but he just cannot sing. It's just a comedy skit. So I just made that, and then people liked it, and I'm like, what, I'm sure there are other songs with similar things. So that kind of, so yeah, so this is
Yeah.
kind of just I don't know. I feel like half the people have unsubscribed here. It's like, क्या बात कर रहा है फुटबॉल पॉडकास्ट में,
नहीं 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 नहीं,
फरहान और
absolutely.
प्रीतम के बारे में.
No,
नहीं नहीं,
no,
because
Yeah.
thing is that's interesting. Sorry, though, I'll just add one
yeah.
more thing here, because I think that's like the dark side of Instagram. कि कोई original content बना रहा है. There are people out there who will, like,
Oh,
without
yeah.
giving any credit, and I feel original content is something which is, made with a lot of effort. Even now that you mention it, I remember, though you have seen Shambhavi's content also, we have seen it
Yeah,
quite a
yeah.
lot. And
Yeah.
we have seen one of, she works with us. She's like our social media consultant,
Hmm.
and she has given us a lot of good ideas over the years. But we have seen a lot of people copying her content as it is, and it's kind
Yeah.
of sad to see when things like that come out, because at the end of the day, when original content, I know the amount of ideation, the amount of editing, and the amount of things that go into publishing. So it's quite sad. Even with Instagram, the algorithm is quite weird actually. I
Yeah.
remember we lost around 50 followers last month. This month we got 100 of them back. One of the
Yeah.
reels did 170K randomly, which was a very low effort reel. Some of the reels we spent hours and hours on, do barely 3-4 thousand. So yeah, these things happen, but I think Zuckerberg is the one who's laughing at the end of it. But someone who is laughing a lot nowadays are the United fans with the business that has happened. Now, now United are of course not in the Champions League this season, but of course the squad looks a lot better. What signings do you see happening over the course of this transfer window? And do you think that United is good enough to challenge for the title this season?
Yeah.
Uh, Challenge for title? No, definitely not. It's going to take probably 3 years to get to that point. I should say
But
three.
they have
Transfers.
surprised us in the past, right? A couple of times with Mourinho and all.
Yeah, they got close, but really were they challenging for the title? I'm looking at like the way I guess I judge it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
performances rather than the results, like on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
Hmm.
See, I was over the moon when we beat FA Cup, or when we beat Man City in the FA Cup. I was like, that day I was on my bachelor party also when that happened. So I got
Oh.
double drunk when that happened.
Yeah.
But going into that game, or going into any Man City game for the last, I don't know how many years, it's always been like United has always been the underdog, which is
Yeah.
wrong. It just feels like, for someone who's grown up in that era of like 2004 to 2013 of the dominance that United had, it just feels wrong to go into these as the underdog. So then you start thinking, okay, why is it wrong? It's just we're lacking that consistency of consistently winning and consistently putting in performances and giving the team, giving the fans confidence that they can actually, keep those levels, keep those same levels. And that, all of that comes from recruitment. Like,
Yeah.
yes, a coach can change things, but this is my thinking is 90% of football is recruitment. Doing the right recruitment, you'll get a good team. You get a decent coach, he'll do well with you. So
Makes sense.
that's why I think the force moves that Ineos made were really nice. Clearly, there was a hole. Martial left. But Martial रहकर भी क्या करता है? मतलब he's half the time injured. तो क्या
Yeah.
करता है? We had one striker, 20-year-old. He was 19 last year. He was the only striker in a club at this of the stature like
You mean
United.
Diallo?
No, Hoyland.
Oh,
Hoyland.
but
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
Hoyland, yeah. Hoyland was the only striker. We didn't have a left back for half the season. Luke Shaw was injured. Malasia, I don't know what's going on with him. I thought half the people thought he was in a coffin somewhere.
Yeah.
He
I
emerged.
think he's out till Jan, as
He's
much
out
as
till
I have
Jan.
heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's out till Christmas easily. We didn't have a left back. We had our backup right back playing as left back. Our center backs all decided कि यही season है सब लोग injured हो जाओ. So like
Ah,
in that, like that, United should never be in that position as a big of a club and big of a brand United is. And
yeah.
that's just 10
Yeah.
years. It goes back to the Glazers. You've heard United fans moan about this over and over again. But it truly does. It really does. You can trace it back. But that being said, what transfers I think United can make. Um, so, firstly, need a left back. That's
Yeah.
like priority number one. Second major priority would be to get a central defensive midfielder, someone who can play the Casemiro role because Casemiro, he was my favorite player when he joined. I had his photo of him. मैंने उसकी literally आरती की है Casemiro when he had joined. I'm not even kidding. But his fall off has been pretty massive last season. So I think for both his sake and the club's sake, I think he should move to a league which
Mm.
maybe suits him at this point. But
Yeah.
Ugarte, they were saying I love Zubamendi as well. Get Zubamendi and get Ugarte and get anyone in, but someone get a central defensive midfielder and who can play the Casemiro. So these two things I would definitely prioritize quite a bit.
Yeah. Yesterday I had gone out. It does not happen too often. So, my father's office is in a very, you know, we live in the east side of Delhi and his office is in the south side of Delhi. So
Uh,
yeah, it travels quite a bit. Right next to his office, there are like those three malls which are very renowned, especially in the last 5 to 6 years. For me, what's the best part about those malls is that how there is a bookstore called Bahari Sons. I'm not sure if it's famous in the USA, but Bahari Sons has got this very unique, and I visit bookstores only to go to sports books sections. And there are other bookstores also called Crossword and Om Bookshop, but all those shops have sports books that I already know about. But Bahari Sons is like why I like that store specifically is because they are books that I haven't heard about. So there was in the sports section, there was a book called The World's Biggest Cash Machine. And I thought, why is it over here? I thought it's a finance book or something, and I took that book out, and it was a book about how Manchester United and the entire Glazers and that thing happened. So
Uh,
I just, so
Understand.
that just, and I have been following football for like quite not quite a long time actually. I started following it during the COVID time because there's no other sports. But Manchester United, and I thought, this would be one of the nice ways to end this episode, because Manchester United has got such a deep mind share even in the minds of those football fans who are not United fans.
Yeah,
And and
absolutely.
there's this new term that I learned this last month during the Euros, where people watch England's games because of hate watching,
hate
something that,
watching.
yeah, that's like something. So even United fans, I remember how people talk about certain players, that you can love him, you can hate him, but you can't ignore him, and that's how.
Yeah.
And that's what Manchester United is, not only in the Ferguson era but also now. Even when the performances are not great, people are constantly hooked to what United does. So it just thought I just thought I should do this. But thank you, Pranay, for taking out the time. Anukar sir, it's been quite a half an hour of United talks, and of course, Pranay did bring in an angle that we did not know before, right?
Absolutely. And before I come to that, I loved when you said hate watching because I remember, Pranay, I'll tell you an incident. I was at Doi Pan's place, which
Yeah.
has often been the case quite a bit in the last few months. And funniest story, we were watching a match between Arsenal and West Ham. And he was like,
Hmm.
सर देखते हैं, बहुत अच्छा मैच हुआ ये है वो है वगैरह वगैरह. I was like, I'll hate watch it. मैं सोच रहा था है ना. And actually West Ham ended up winning 2-0. So I
I know
was
that
like, yeah,
match.
ये काला जादू work करता है. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was the plan. But
Yeah.
yeah, I am really happy that even United won the FA Cup. We went for the screening together, though. I
Yeah.
think you might remember with a few of our
Yes.
members. And I was thinking that night that over the last few years there have been times when I have legit begged United कि भाई जीत जाओ सिटी से ये वाला मैच at a particular time कि भाई लिवरपूल जीत जाएगी. I have been on my knees कि please जीत जाए. But
Yeah.
उसी टाइम पे यूनाइटेड इतना वर्स्ट फुटबॉल खेलती है, चाहे उससे एक मैच पहले एकदम ना
Yeah.
प्राइम बार्सिलोना रखी हो. But yeah, these things happen in football. But yeah, man, great to have you. It's not the easiest doing morning episodes here, and I know it's not easy for you doing the ones
Yeah.
at night. But having people who are as invigorating as you, as fun as you, I think it makes it worth it to do the indie football podcast. So thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I had a blast. I mean, talking about football, talking about United, you don't realize how tired or how what time it is, or you don't
Absolutely.
get to do that right as much. I mean, you
Yeah,
guys, this is what you do. But, yeah, it was a great time, and thanks for having me.
Yeah,
absolutely. It was
absolutely.
a pleasure.
Yeah, and we will of course stay in touch with you. We'll probably have some preview lives on Instagram or YouTube whenever United plays. So of course
Yeah.
we would want that to happen as well.
Definitely.
Thank
अगर
And
लिवरपूल का हेट वॉच करना है तो बुला लो मुझे, मैं आ जाऊंगा.
Of course.
Liverpool hate watch alongs. That might be
आर्नी
cool.
आर्नी क्या करेगा? आर्नी स्लॉट करेगा
Uh,
कुछ?
यार पता नहीं मुझे तो लग रहा है अभी बस we cannot say anything over his bald head फिलहाल के
आई नो
लिए.
उसका ऑरा गया, क्लॉप का ऑरा गया ना, तो मतलब
so
दैट
that's
इज द
Interesting
थिंग.
होगा. But we might send you a collaborator request जब post put out करेंगे. If possible आप please accept कर देना. And
yes.
because we'll put out a graphic for you. Doi Pan says very nice things about our guests. So
Yes.
if you are on top of cloud nine after it, then I won't be surprised.
Yes. Thank you everyone. Good night. Take care.
Cool.
Okay, man. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.